9:34. Welcome back into the Gary Harris Show here on Tide 100.9. You hear that music, you know it's time for Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. Tider Insider TV joining us for his weekly update. Good morning, Rodney.
Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Doing well. Good to have you on. A lot to cover this morning. Let's start with the latest on Freddie Roach. I'm curious what you're hearing. All kinds of internet reports now, and I know you had gotten wind of this over the weekend. It's kind of been a fluid situation with Coach Roach last week. Reports were out that he was going to join the New York Giants staff as defensive line coach there for new coach Joe Judge, a former Alabama staffer. And then Lane Kiffin sweetened the pot there at Ole Miss, gave him, I think, an associate head coach title and probably more money. And it was announced by Ole Miss that he was staying, and this weekend started floating out there that he may be joining Alabama. What's the latest you're hearing on Freddie Roach?
Well, again, to be clear, nothing official, obviously, but I would say this, based on everyone I've spoken to, a lot of sources, and I texted you this yesterday afternoon. It sounds to me, based on the sources I'm speaking with, that Freddie Roach, and all indications are that he will join this Alabama staff coming over from Ole Miss. So, that's the latest I've heard, Gary. There is also talk. I do not have confirmation. I know that Nick Saban is supposed to go on a recruiting trip to Texas today to see Alfred Collins, a defensive lineman out there in Bastrop, Texas. My understanding is that Freddie Roach is expected to go with him. Now, again, is that 100%? No. I want to be clear about that, but that is my understanding as of now.
When you look at Coach Roach, obviously was a really good player here at Alabama as an inside linebacker in the early 2000s and got his degree from Alabama, was a strength and conditioning staffer, went over to East Mississippi Community College there in Scuba, the famous junior college from the reality TV show, and started his coaching career there, coached the defensive line at Murray State, coached linebackers and defensive ends at South Alabama, returned to Alabama as the director of player development, and then, for the last 3 years has been at Ole Miss and obviously has done a good job there and has kind of made a name for himself in the coaching ranks. So you get if he comes back, you get a former player, a guy who's his star is rising, and he's known as an excellent recruiter. And let's be honest, a big part of what makes assistant coaches attractive to head coaches is not just their ability on the field, but their ability to recruit.
Yeah, and he's got all that. He's got great communication skills, the ability to relate to people very well, and I think these kids they're very attracted to him in terms of his ability to relate to them. So I think that's obviously extremely important. So he is a very qualified recruiter, and again, he is a young coach. He has some experience. You listed his resume there. He has a lot of experience in the Alabama system, being around, knows how things operate with Nick Saban around here. So I think that's always beneficial, and people know him and know what to expect of him. So again, if he is indeed added to the staff as we hear, then I think it'll be a good move for this Alabama coaching staff.
Again, nothing official. I want to make sure we're clear on that. But there's a defensive lineman in Lucedale, Mississippi named McKinley Jackson that a lot of teams covet. He's a guy who's not going to sign until the February signing period. Alabama's recruited him heavily, as Ole Miss and Mississippi State and LSU and Auburn, and you go on and on. But Freddie Roach, we hear, has a really good rapport with McKinley Jackson. If Roach comes to Alabama, you'd have to think, based on what's out there, that will help Alabama's chances of signing McKinley Jackson.
Well, he's been recruiting him a while, and they have a great relationship. They've known each other, like I said, a while, and I think he really likes Freddie quite a bit. So I think that would certainly be helpful in the recruitment of McKinley Jackson, who, let's be clear now, this is a difference maker on the defensive line.
True.
He's a big, strong interior defensive lineman with all the qualities we've seen of some of these great Alabama defensive linemen over the past 10 or 12 years. And, Gary, I look at him and I say, if Alabama can land McKinley Jackson to go with Timothy Smith, who I think fits in that same mold, and you combine that with the guys that they brought in last year on the defensive line, Alabama's starting to get back to where they used to be in terms of numbers and the quality of those players on the defensive line. So I think McKinley Jackson is a huge target here down the stretch. And, again, I think that Freddie could be a big, big boost in Alabama's pursuit of McKinley Jackson.
Rodney Orr with us from TiderInsider.com and Tider Insider TV. Sticking with recruiting, because Alabama had such a very fruitful December signing period, but there are a few spots left, and it's a fluid situation with some of these guys and even some Alabama commitments that haven't signed. I know Jason Jones is on a recruiting trip to Baylor over the weekend, and I know Oregon's interested there. Just your best guess, will Jason Jones be a part of this Alabama signing class? Do you think ultimately he winds up somewhere else?
Well, it's always tough to predict what's going to happen in a situation like that. I think Alabama, and this is coming from Jason Jones' side of the recruitment, that Alabama's talking to him about the possibility that they would prefer him as an offensive lineman. He wants to play defense. Everyone else is recruiting him right now as a defensive lineman. He's supposed to visit Oregon, I think, this next weekend or before signing day for sure. So you've got that. You've got Baylor. You've got other schools that have been talking to him. So we'll see what happens with Jason. Would not surprise me if he ended up elsewhere. But again, as we know, Gary, you mentioned, you used the key words. Everything is fluid when you're talking about recruiting.
You mentioned Alfred Collins. We mentioned McKinley Jackson. It's clear, even though Alabama has had good defensive line play since Coach Saban's been here, that for whatever reasons, the defense the last couple of years, including up front, maybe has not made the number of plays, and maybe that's something with the coaching carousel. They seem like now they're changing defensive line coaches every year, but it's clear, again, after a big defensive line haul last recruiting cycle, that Alabama has put a lot of emphasis on that again in this signing period. Even now, with just a few spots left, they continue to recruit defensive linemen. That's clearly a priority for this staff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the differences up front, and I think that they are intent on landing at least one here down the stretch. And, again, McKinley Jackson, a high priority target. Would they take two? They very possibly could and might. We'll see what happens. Again, can't predict that with 100% certainty that they would take two. It might depend on who they could get. But McKinley Jackson, you mentioned Alfred Collins out of Bastrop, Texas. He visited Texas this weekend. His mom ran track at Texas. He has an aunt that's employed by the University of Texas. I don't think that Texas has been a lock for him. With all that said, Oklahoma's been in there very strongly. I do think over the last couple of weeks, though, Texas has gained some ground with him, real strong momentum right now. But we'll see what happens. He visited Alabama officially for the Southern Miss game back in September. And, Nick Saban getting in front of him and his mom, if that happens today as we expect, then, certainly could be an influence. We'll see if he decides to take an unofficial visit here before signing day. McKinley Jackson, by the way, I don't know if it's been mentioned, but he was here on an unofficial visit this past weekend. Heard that went really well. And then there's another kid out in Texas, and people are kind of trying to downplay this kid. Princely Umanamilan. From Manor, Texas, Gary. He's about 6'4", 270. And this guy reminds me a lot of Quinnen Williams coming out of high school. And I will say this, Texas has pushed really hard. He formerly was committed to Texas, backed off that. Went to Texas this weekend. I don't think he had a great visit there. I think he's looking to go somewhere else. Baylor's been in the mix. We'll see with Dave Aranda coming in, how that works out. Florida has been pushing him real hard. USC has pushed him real hard. Oklahoma. He's supposed to visit Florida this coming weekend, Gary. Now, here's you another one. 2 weeks from now, Auburn is pushing extremely hard to get this kid in for an official visit. I do know that if Alabama decides to bring him in on a visit, that he would come in. He would reserve a spot for Alabama. He's very, very interested in Alabama. We'll see if that unfolds and what Alabama's interest might be down the stretch.
Interesting indeed, as Alabama tries to wrap up this recruiting class. A couple other topics I want to hit on with you in regards to Alabama football. Jerome Ford, we know, transfers to Cincinnati. Scott Lashley goes into the portal, and offensive tackle, who I thought, might and he could still stay here. I mean, he could factor in, I think, to the battle for right tackle, but it's an example of a guy who, I mean, if you drew up an offensive tackle in just terms of the way that the guy looks physically, you draw up Scott Lashley. He's 6'7", he's about 305, he's put together, he has long arms. It just has not happened for him here yet. What are you hearing? You think he'll stay in the portal and transfer somewhere else, or do you think there's a chance he could return to Alabama?
Well, nothing official again. I want to be clear on that, but the word I'm hearing is he's enrolling at Mississippi State.
Okay.
That's the talk now. Okay. Again, want to be clear. I don't have that officially confirmed, but from all indications over there, he's set to enroll at Mississippi State.
Where he almost went out of high school. Yeah.
He really came close, no question about that. He's from nearby. I think he's only 20 minutes, grew up 20 minutes from Mississippi State, came over here, and he stuck it out for 4 years.
Got his degree.
Yep. So, we'll see what happens. But if he goes over to Mississippi State, certainly wish him well, because he never complained one time that I'm aware of. And, he was a guy that was highly recruited.
Yeah, and like I said, got that degree, so he's a graduate transfer. He's eligible to play. They got a new coach there in Mike Leach, so it might be a good situation for Scott Lashley. I hate to see him leave because I really always felt like that he could be a factor, but he's got 1 year left, so he's got to make the most of it. Hey, Tua over in Honolulu this weekend met with some reporters on Saturday, and I think this is noteworthy, Rodney, because to me, at least, and I'm reading the tea leaves here, but I don't think you say you're going to attend the draft in person unless you're expecting to go pretty early. That's just my thoughts. All right. I don't think you're going to go there if you're worried about having to sit there a long time and, with the cameras on you. He announced that he'll be attending the upcoming NFL draft in person, says he's feeling good. I believe he must be getting some good reports from folks there in the NFL. I have always said all along, I think he'll be a top 10 pick, maybe the Dolphins at 5, the Chargers at 6. But he announced he's going to the draft. Again, I think you have to view that as a positive as far as what he's hearing from folks in the NFL. Your take?
Well, I hope so. Nothing would surprise me. I've seen guys go before and they've dropped. Johnny Manziel was a guy that he went in the first round, but I think he went a lot later than he expected and went down in the 20s somewhere to Cleveland. You never really know. I think Tua, with this decision that he's made, hopefully he will be a top 15 pick or higher than maybe in the top 6, as you mentioned. So we'll see what happens. I think that he's. One thing we know about him is, Gary, he is a guy that he heals very quickly. He may have some injuries, but he certainly healed very quickly, and he got back from all of his injuries pretty at a pretty good pace. So don't count him out.
When all's said and done with Alabama's draft-eligible juniors, Ruggs is gone, Judy is gone, McKinney is gone, Wills is gone. But some guys came back. I mean, Devontae Smith came back, and Najee Harris came back, and Alex Leatherwood came back. And, those are just examples. How do you think Alabama came out when all was said and done with the draft? Were you pleased with the guys that came back, or were you hoping maybe one or two more would? How do you think Alabama came out of that?
Well, I tell you what, Gary, go look at what happened to LSU.
Yeah.
They got wiped out. I think they lost 9, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even 10. But yeah, they got wiped out. I think Alabama did extremely well because we sat there in the press box talking. You remember several times throughout the season saying, do you think Devontae will come back? Because that would be really big if he did. And there was a time we were convinced that he wouldn't, And so the fact that you get him back with Jalen Waddle, that's huge, in my opinion, for that wide receiver core and the guy playing quarterback as well. But Najee coming back, I think that was a little bit of a surprise. Most people thought he was a lock to go because running backs need to go when, they coming off a big season like he had. That, we talk about all the tread on the tires and how important that is. So that was a surprise. Great that Leatherwood's coming back. I think he needed another year. Certainly will help this offensive line. I think they have a chance to be fantastic, returning 4 guys and having some other ones that can fill that 5th spot, I think, very well. And then on the defensive side, let's not forget about Dylan Moses. I mean, that was really big too, his knowledge of the defense and all of those things. And then even Josh McMillan coming back for his 6th year. I think he'll be a great role model, great influence on some of the younger players and helping them out. And I think Alabama, and I may be forgetting somebody, but I think Alabama came out of this very, very well.
Rodney, Coach Saban obviously still here, Cochran, but the links to that first national championship team in 2009 with Coach Saban, undefeated, still the only undefeated team that he's had here from start to finish. There are not that many left. And in news now that Burton Burns, who is just an unbelievable gentleman and terrific coach and had been off the field, I guess got the itch, and the Giants called again with Joe Judge, and he's leaving to become the Giants running back. I hate to see Coach Burns leave. At the same time, I mean, what an opportunity to be an NFL running backs coach, but just a great guy, great representative of the University of Alabama. Your takeaways and thoughts on Coach Burns taking that job with the Giants?
Well, first of all, everything you said, what a really, really nice guy. I mean, just always very cordial when you've had the opportunity to bump into him, and, very respectful guy. And did a tremendous job, obviously, as the running backs coach. And people say, well, but let me tell you, there's a lot of things that these guys have to learn. Look at what he did with Derrick Henry. I'll never forget Derrick Henry's first game here. I've never seen a kid look so lost on the field, not knowing who to pick up in the blitz, not knowing, when to release out for a pass and all of those things, and how he brought him along. And by the end of the year, if you remember 2013 in that Oklahoma game, Derrick made a great play when he picked up a blitz, if you recall, and A.J. hit a big throw for a touchdown. And then he made a great catch out of the backfield for a touchdown, just playing with so much confidence. All of that was coaching. That was Burton Burns bringing him along. And so he did a tremendous job here. Obviously, 2 Heisman Trophy winners with Ingram and Derrick Henry. And and people say, well, why did he go off the field? Well, he was kind of getting up there a little bit, but I do think Gary had, double knee surgery, double knee replacement maybe. So that slowed him down a little bit. It certainly restricted him in terms of his ability to get out on the road and recruit. So he needed to get off the field for a little while, but I'm glad that he's getting back on it, because I think that's really what he wanted to do, was be back on the field coaching.
Yeah, I agree with you, and he'll do a terrific job with Saquon Barkley there in the Giants. Finally, basketball is the record's not great, but boy, to see the improvement this team has made just from the start of the season until now. What's the vibe on TiderInsider.com? You feeling the members getting pumped up for basketball with this exciting style that they're playing and knocking off Auburn and coming back and scoring 88 against Mizzou? What's the vibe you're getting from the basketball folks there at TiderInsider.com?
Honestly, clearly Mark Gottfried had a nice run at one point. He got Alabama number 1 in the country, and people were excited. I sense even a more genuine excitement now with Nate Oates, that this program can do really good things with him. The direction it's headed. Again, they're 10-7. They've won 2 games in a row. Nice comeback in terms of coming off an emotional win and performance against Auburn and taking care of Missouri. So I think there's a lot of confidence in where he's taken this program right now, how he's developed this team. Seems to be, if you just watch them, a lot of chemistry on that team, and that starts with him. So he's built a lot of confidence in some of these players. You're looking at John Petty and some of these other guys that are playing with so much confidence now. And so as far as what the fan feeling or pulse is right now, I think it's very positive, very, very positive. And really, I think there's probably as much excitement as I can recall in a while.
Yeah, I'm with you too. They're a fun team to watch. All right, folks, TiderInsider.com, still just $48 a year, the best value on the internet for Alabama sports coverage. Follow Rodney on Twitter at TiderInsider. Catch him here on Mondays and Tider Insider TV at 6:30 on Tuesday nights on WVUA 23. Thanks, Rodney.
All right, buddy. Take care.
All right, 9:52. We're going to come back and wrap up this first hour of the Gary Harris Show. More college football discussion coming up with Scott Moore in hour number 2 here on Tide 100.9 FM.